the Federal Reserve, a symbol of American economic might. Its vault, a concrete and steel labyrinth, housed billions, impregnable, inviolable, or so they thought. Thick steel doors, reinforced concrete walls, and a network of laser beams guarded the vault. Armed guards patrolled relentlessly. Every corner bristled with surveillance cameras. A digital fortress protected the physical one. Anthony Tony Salerno was an enigma, a quiet systems administrator by day, a digital phantom by night. He lived a simple life, a small apartment, a love for vintage computers. Tony possessed a gift, a natural talent for understanding complex systems. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. Code was his language, computers his playground. Tony's fascination with security systems was no secret. From a young age, he was captivated by the intricate dance between code and security, the endless battle between those who build walls and those who seek to breach them. His journey into the world of cybersecurity began as a hobby, but it quickly grew into an all-consuming passion. He devoured books on cryptography and cybersecurity. His room was filled with stacks of books, each one a treasure trove of knowledge. He would spend hours flipping through pages, absorbing every detail about encryption algorithms, network protocols, and the history of cyber warfare. The more he learned, the more he realized how much there was still to uncover. He spent countless hours probing networks, testing their defenses. His nights were often spent in the glow of his computer screen, running simulations and testing the limits of various systems. He became adept at identifying vulnerabilities, understanding the subtle nuances that could make or break a network's security. His skills grew sharper with each passing day, and so did his curiosity. The Federal Reserve, however, held a special allure. It was the ultimate challenge, a fortress of financial data and security protocols. The idea of testing its defenses was both thrilling and daunting. Tony knew that breaching such a system would require not just skill, but also patience and a keen eye for detail. One late night, while combing through public data, he stumbled upon an anomaly. It was a moment of serendipity, a chance discovery that set his heart racing. The data he was analyzing seemed ordinary at first, but a closer look revealed something unusual, something that didn't quite fit. A tiny discrepancy in the Federal Reserve's network traffic. A single overlooked port. It was almost imperceptible, a blip in the vast sea of data. But to Tony, it was a beacon, a sign that there was more beneath the surface. He knew that such a small detail could be the key to unlocking a much larger mystery. It was a crack in the fortress wall, a small, almost invisible flaw that could be exploited. Tony's mind raced with possibilities. He knew that this was just the beginning, that the real challenge lay ahead, but for now he allowed himself a moment of triumph. He had found a chink in the armor, and that was enough to fuel his determination for the battles to come. The discovery sent a thrill through Tony. This wasn't just another system. This was the Federal Reserve. The stakes were higher, the risk exhilarating. He spent weeks studying the anomaly. He mapped the network, identifying vulnerabilities. He crafted custom code designed to exploit the overlooked port. He planned every step, anticipating obstacles. He was an artist preparing his masterpiece. The night of the heist was eerily quiet. Rain lashed against Tony's window, creating a rhythmic yet unsettling backdrop to his clandestine activities. The city outside was drenched, its usual hustle and bustle muted by the downpour. It was the perfect cover for what he was about to do. He sat before his computer, his fingers dancing across the keyboard with a practiced ease. Each keystroke was deliberate, each command precise. Tony had spent years honing his skills, and tonight they would be put to the ultimate test. The glow of the screen illuminated his face, revealing a look of intense concentration. Lines of code scrolled down the screen, a digital tapestry of his making. He was in. The Federal Reserve's defenses were formidable, but Tony was a master of his craft. He had studied their systems, learned their weaknesses, and now he was exploiting them with surgical precision. He navigated the Federal Reserve's network with surgical precision, bypassing firewalls, disabling security protocols. Each layer of security was a challenge, but Tony was relentless. He moved through the digital corridors like a ghost, unseen and undetected. His heart raced, but his hands remained steady. He was a ghost, moving unseen through the digital corridors. The office around him was dark and silent, the only light coming from the monitors that surrounded him. Each screen displayed a different aspect of the heist, and Tony's eyes darted between them, ensuring everything was going according to plan. With a few keystrokes, he initiated the transfer. The culmination of months of planning and preparation. The numbers on the screen changed, and Tony felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it. The moment he had been working towards. He watched as the transfer progressed, each second feeling like an eternity. $18.9 million, gone in an instant. The confirmation screen flashed and Tony allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. But he knew the job wasn't over yet. He had to cover his tracks, ensure that no trace of his presence remained. He began the process of erasing his digital footprints, methodically and meticulously. The rain continued to fall outside, a constant reminder of the world beyond his screen. But for Tony, the only world that mattered was the one he controlled with his fingertips. The next morning, chaos erupted at the Federal Reserve. The once orderly and secure environment was now a scene of utter pandemonium. Employees were running around, their faces etched with panic and confusion. The air was thick with tension as the reality of the situation began to sink in. The Federal Reserve, a symbol of financial stability, was now the epicenter of a crisis that no one saw coming. The audit revealed the impossible. Numbers that should have balanced were now glaringly off. Discrepancies that couldn't be explained by simple errors or oversight. The auditors, seasoned professionals who had seen it all, were left in a state of shock. Their faces turned pale as they realized the magnitude of the situation. This was not just a minor glitch, it was a financial catastrophe. Millions vanished into thin air. Vaults that were supposed to be filled with cash and valuables were now empty. Digital screens displayed alarming messages of missing funds. Financial charts showed sudden, inexplicable drops. It was as if the money had simply evaporated, leaving behind a trail of confusion and despair. The implications were staggering, and the questions were endless. The FBI launched a full-scale investigation. Agents swarmed the building, their presence adding to the already heightened sense of urgency. They conducted interviews, gathered evidence, and tried to piece together the puzzle. The Federal Reserve was now a crime scene, and the hunt for answers had begun. The stakes were high, and the pressure was mounting. Tony, watching the news unfold, felt a chill. The gravity of the situation hit him like a ton of bricks. He knew that this was not just another news story, it was a ticking time bomb. The fear in his eyes was unmistakable. He could feel the walls closing in, and he knew that his time was running out. He knew they would come for him. The realization was like a punch to the gut. He had been careful, but not careful enough. The net was closing, and he could almost hear the footsteps of the agents closing in. His mind raced as he tried to think of a way out, but every option seemed to lead to a dead end. He deleted his digital tracks. Every file, every email, every trace of his involvement had to be erased. His fingers flew over the keyboard as he worked frantically to cover his tracks. He knew that the digital world held the key to his downfall, and he was determined to leave no stone unturned, but deep down, he knew it was a race against time. He disposed of his equipment. He prepared to disappear. Every piece of technology that could be traced back to him had to go. He dismantled his computer, threw away his phone, and packed a bag with the essentials. He was ready to leave his old life behind and start anew. But the weight of his actions hung heavy on his shoulders, and he knew that escaping would not be easy. But he was already trapped in a game he could not win. The walls were closing in, and there was no way out. He had played his hand, and now he had to face the consequences. The realization was crushing. He was a pawn in a game much larger than himself, and the odds were stacked against him. The sense of defeat was overwhelming, and he knew that his time was up. The FBI investigation was relentless. They followed the digital trail, piecing together fragments of data. They identified the compromised port. They traced the attack back to Tony's apartment. The arrest was swift, the evidence overwhelming. In court, Tony remained silent. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. The stolen money was never recovered. Tony's audacious heist sent shockwaves through the financial world. If the Federal Reserve could be breached, no institution was safe. Security protocols were immediately reviewed and strengthened. The heist served as a stark reminder. The digital world, for all its advancements, was still vulnerable. Human error, complacency, and a single overlooked detail could have catastrophic consequences. Tony Salerno, the unassuming systems administrator, became a cautionary tale, a symbol of the ever-present battle between security and vulnerability in the digital age. His story highlighted the immense power of technology, but it also exposed its inherent fragility. As technology advanced, so did the threats. The price of security, it seemed, was eternal vigilance.